An entitled old jerk screams at a flight attendant, all because he didn't have a place to put his stupid bag. Things got so bad that this guy almost started fighting other passengers. But thankfully, this guy got humbled in one of the best ways I've ever seen in my life. And truly, this guy absolutely deserved it. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife, my baby, and myself were all returning home from a quick trip to visit parents out of state. I board early to get the baby's car seat secured, and after that, I'm just chilling and waiting as the rest of the passengers continue boarding. As announced, the flight is a full one, so the seats are quickly filling up. Well, this old entitled jerk with a clearly disgruntled look on his face comes storming down the aisle to the back end of the plane. He then begins complaining to the flight attendant about how someone supposedly took the overhead storage bin over his seat, and he cannot fit his bag there. Now, this flight attendant is a woman who's probably in her late 40s and early 50s. She then kindly and respectfully tells him that this is a full flight, that overhead space will be limited, and is not guaranteed to be available right over your seat. She then politely suggests that he look for a different compartment to store his bag. Well, this antagonist of our story did not like hearing that. He did not like that one bit. He then begins raising his voice and responds that he needs the spot over his seat and that it is the only way to make sure that his bag will not be stolen. But the flight attendant politely and calmly repeats her answer to him and ensures that his bag will be safe. Well, his face starts turning red with rage. He shouts at her, "This is ridiculous. That's my spot. Haven't you tried boarding from the back to the front so that everybody gets only the overhead space right over their seat?" Around this time, my wife and my baby arrive at our row, and they get a front row seat to this show from this point on. The flight attendant replies by saying, "Actually, yes. We did try that years ago, and it didn't work for various reasons, so we stopped. I am asking you to please look for an open space for your bag and take your seat." Now, the old entitled jerk who was fuming at this point shouts at her about how stupid that is, and how disrespectful she is being to him. He then continues on a long-winded shouting rant, and she tells him that she is trying to be as calm and respectful as she can, but there is nothing that she can do about this flight being so full. He continues ranting and raving at her right up in her face, thinking that he can get his way by dominating her until she relents. The poor flight attendant is trying her best to maintain her composure while being verbally berated by this red-faced shouting idiot, but pretty soon it became apparent that she was on the verge of tears. Now, I would have intervened at this point had I been flying by myself, but with my baby sitting right next to me, I decided it was best to keep her out of this situation. Thankfully, the man sitting behind me stepped in. He told this guy, "Hey, how about you go look for an open spot for your bag instead of sitting here and screaming at this lady?" The entitled old jerk looked over at him with this pure hatred and fury in his eyes. He then shouts at him, "You stay out of this. This is none of your business, kid." Now, the kid in this situation, who is a bearded man in his 30s, does not back down for a second and firmly tells him to go back to his seat right now. Well, this guy, who was clearly offended that a younger man would dare tell him what to do, replies by saying, "No, what are you gonna do, fight me?" Well, the bearded man looks him right in the eyes. He says to him, "I am a retired US Marine, and you do not want to do this. Now go back to your seat right now." The entitled old jerk angrily looks down, knowing that he is defeated, his ego clearly crushed and humiliated, but still he is steaming with anger. He turns away and then stomps right back up to the front of the plane. As he gets halfway down the aisle, he stops and shouts back at the flight attendant, "Clearly, I made a mistake choosing this airline. I'm never flying with this ever again." And then he continues back to his seat. And honestly, this incident brought up so many markers for me, it's not even funny. For starters, there's such fear and paranoia and just a lack of trust in others that you can just inherently have. Also, this guy thought he knew better than people with years of experience in this industry. Also, he threw a public temper tantrum over something so small and trivial and unimportant. He thought he was tough by targeting people that he thinks he can dominate by aggression, such as the woman flight attendant, only to then cower down as soon as any real pushback came his way. He also had this awful sense of superiority based solely on him being older than others. And of course, he just had to get the last word to give himself some kind of self-perceived victory. I guarantee that he went home, still stewing about the whole ordeal, did zero self-reflection, and thinks that he is entirely in the right about it. But this guy definitely couldn't be more wrong. Wow, what a psychopath. Seriously, just find a new spot for your bag. Is it that serious? Just because the compartment above your head is full doesn't mean you have to act like an idiot on the plane. I'm honestly really surprised this guy didn't get kicked off the plane because his behavior was seriously unacceptable. But overall, good for that one US Marine for stepping up and being like, "No, you're gonna sit down." Because this entitled jerk clearly had some weird chip on his shoulder, because his behavior truly was absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for going out with friends and leaving my younger sister with our grandparents, even though she begged me not to go and to spend time with her. Because after a lifetime of dealing with her spoiled, rotten attitude, I honestly just wanted some time to myself and away from my sister. Here's what happened. Last weekend, my parents went to a wedding, and they left me, a 16-year-old male, and my sister, who's 11, with our grandparents. My parents wanted us to come with them, and my sister wanted to go to the wedding and got dressed up and all this other stuff, but my sister isn't known for behaving good, and the friends who were getting married didn't want her there as a result. So my parents were in a bad mood, and my sister was upset. Now, my parents coddle my sister a lot. She acts really babyish because she's treated like one by them, and they make me act like it too. In fact, I'm supposed to be soft and caring with her. They'll make me do stuff with her because she wants to, and it seriously doesn't matter what I'm doing. They interrupted me during homework to go drive with her and mom to some extracurricular activity that she was doing, all because my sister wanted me in the car. They make me give her hugs if she wants them, even if I don't want to, and I even have to hold her hand if she wants to hold mine. They even took the lock off my door at home, so I'd need to let her sleep in my room if she wanted to. And stuff like this is just completely normal for us, and saying no doesn't do anything. My grandparents have said they go too far as well, but my parents just completely brush it off. Now, my sister doesn't like sleeping anywhere but our house, so she hated the idea of going to our grandparents' house. And yes, we would have stayed at a hotel if we joined our parents for the wedding, so don't ask me how that worked out. But after our parents dropped us off, my sister was being super clingy with me, and she wanted us to do stuff together the entire day, and be home with her to put her to bed. My grandparents knew my friends wanted to meet up, so they gave me money and sent me out for the day, and I was out all the way until late at night. Now, my sister begged me not to go. She cried and threw a fit, and continued after I left. When I got home, she still wasn't asleep, but my grandparents made sure I could stay in my room alone and let me lock the door. Well, my parents were so pissed off when they picked us up, and my sister was still upset, and my grandparents told my parents that they should be ashamed for letting it get that bad. My parents then told me that I should be ashamed, all for leaving my sister in distress like that, and then they asked me where my love was for my baby sister, with a strong emphasis on the baby part. So am I the jerk for spending time with my friends without my sister being involved? What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, the second they ask you, oh, where's your love for your baby sister? That would have left my body the second they took the lock off my door. Like, are you kidding me right now? You have no privacy. Your parents are insane for the way they're babying your little sister, and it absolutely is obnoxious. She's 11 years old. She's not a child. So for her to still be acting like this is insane, and it 100% falls on your parents for encouraging this. Like, this kid is completely spoiled. I mean, she literally gets whatever she wants and basically runs that house. Like, your grandparents are right. Your parents should be ashamed for letting it get this bad. So no, of course you didn't do anything wrong. My God, if I was in your shoes, I would be counting the days until I could move out, because this kind of behavior is not normal. And while it may seem normal on your end since you're living through it, trust me when I say this is not the way a family is supposed to act. Am I the jerk for paying for my kid's class trip when my kid's stepsister and stepcousin can't go with them? Because right now, my ex is demanding that I pay for all the kids to go on this trip, claiming that if I don't do this, the kids will start hating each other, and that will be entirely my fault. Here's what happened. So my ex and I are both 30 years old, and we separated after the birth of our twins 8 years ago. We had only dated for 14 months when she got pregnant, and we only stayed together during the pregnancy because we wanted to try and be a family for our kids' sake. But she met someone else and fell for him and wanted to have a chance at love, and our separation was amicable enough. We co-parented well for the first 2 years, but when she met her husband, who is, by the way, different than the guy she fell in love with during our relationship, things completely changed. He was a single father and a sole provider for his daughter, who was the same age as our kids, and she actually declared that I would be responsible for including her like she was my child too if I was buying gifts or doing anything fun with our kids. This started us on a bad path, and now we parallel parent instead of co-parent because I was expected to babysit her stepkid when I wanted to have fun with my kids, and I was supposed to spend equally across all kids for gifts. Now, my ex and I have 50-50 custody, and nobody pays any child support because we both have our kids an equal amount of time. My kids and I are very close. I do not include the other children at their mom's house when I have them, and I do not interact with those other children. 3 years ago, their stepdad's nephew moved in with them, and a year later, their mom and stepdad had a baby daughter together, so they now have a stepsister, a stepcousin, and a half-sister at that house. And my ex is potentially expecting again. This is partially where the fight comes from. The school the kids go to is small, so they're in the same class as the step-siblings, and they have a class trip coming in November to an interactive museum. It is expensive for a class trip at their age, but I can afford it, and the kids want to go, so I paid for it. But my ex was was pissed off at me. She and her husband can't afford to send the stepdaughter and nephew, and my ex told me that I should either pay for all 4 of them to go, or all 4 could just miss it entirely. But I said to her no. I told her I have the right to pay for them to go, and the trip falls during my parenting time so I can send them. Her husband then told me I was sabotaging their family, and I was being a jerk to kids who get to see their family go on the class trip that they themselves can't be a part of. He told me that I should care more about all of the kids, and my ex backed him up, of course, and said that the kids hating each other will be all on me. So am I the jerk in this situation with the way I'm handling my ex's kids? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk at all. This is insane. You're only obligated to the twins that you had between you and your ex. So for her to be like, okay, well, while we're at it, here's some extra kids for you to take care of. You need to pay for all their stuff. Sorry, that's just the way it is. It's like, lady, that's not happening. I'm only obligated to take care of my kids and my kids only. Like, the entitlement I'm seeing from her is completely unacceptable. And it's so divisive too, because she's trying to be like, oh, if these kids hate each other, that's on you. But in reality, that's going to be on her, because where's that hatred going to come from? It's not going to come from those kids. It's going to come from those parents. They will be the ones to tell them that, yes, this is wrong and you should be upset. So no, you're not doing anything wrong, and you're literally just trying to raise your kids in the best way possible, because in my opinion, I don't think you've done anything wrong. Am I the jerk for telling my friend that I don't want to take the same flights as her for my honeymoon? Because after we found out that we would be going to the same city the day after my wedding, we decided that we wanted some privacy, which has now completely thrown a wrench in my social life, leaving me unsure of what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female, and I'm getting married very soon and planning to go to Barcelona for my honeymoon, which is something I really thought I told my best friend. Well, a few days ago, my 30-year-old female friend told me that she's planning a trip to Barcelona the day after my wedding, which I was initially taken aback by, since I thought that she had planned this knowing that I was going. My friend has joked before about tagging along to my honeymoon and really feels clingy at times, which has been noted and commented on by other friends. She made it clear that she didn't know about my plans, but that she still will go ahead with her plans. Now, I would prefer if this wasn't the case, but I can't stop her from going to that part of the world. From previous encounters, I anticipate that she will want to spend time with us while we are there, and I can foresee her feeling offended if we don't. I then suggested to my friend that if we are all going at the same time, that my husband and I are going to book different flights, and express that I would not feel comfortable being on the exact same flights. Fast forward, and after our conversation, I get a phone call from my other friend asking me what I've done to make my best friend upset. She was upset by the comment that I made about feeling uncomfortable with taking the same flights and can't understand what about that makes me uncomfortable. She says that I've made her feel as though she's done something wrong, hence why I'm avoiding being in the same airplane as her. Now, this was really surprising to me, and now my best friend doesn't want to speak to me, and my second friend is seemingly on my best friend's side and says that I should apologize. So right now, I feel so confused. I feel as though I am justified in wanting to take separate flights, and I don't want to dismiss my friend's feelings, but I'm struggling to understand her reaction. What should I do? No, you're not the jerk here. Both of your friends in this story are being just super weird. The lady that's going to Barcelona is seriously trying to be like, oh, let's go on the same flight. And it seems like you already know her pattern of behavior, so she's going to be all over you guys during your honeymoon. And it's like, seriously, this is supposed to be like a private endeavor, and you don't want to have anybody else there that could, like, I don't know, spoil the mood. So in my opinion, it makes total sense that you would want to take separate flights, because this is not a group vacation. This is meant for you and your husband and only the two of you. So taking separate flights is not a shot at her, but more so it's just you prioritizing the two of you. And for this second friend to get involved and be like, wow, you need to apologize. Like, what is she talking about? You didn't do anything. You literally just said, hey, we're going to take separate flights so this can feel like a private experience. And if your first friend really wants to be offended by this and be like, I don't know what I did wrong, then sure, let her feel offended. Who gives a crap? Maybe that's just me, but the way she's acting is so irrational that I just don't think any logical conversation is going to get through to her. So no, you didn't do anything wrong. This is such a weird thing to be mad about. And in my opinion, I wouldn't think anything more about this, because the way your friends are acting is completely out of the ordinary. Am I the jerk for flipping out on my mom after she talked to my 6-year-old son and convinced him that he would be an older brother and that we're going to have another child? Because right now we are incredibly upset, as this is not only categorically false, but also incredibly toxic. Here's what happened. Okay, so my wife and I have one child together, a 6-year-old son. When we got married, we agreed we both only wanted one child. A few years ago, my wife got her tubes tied, and I also got a vasectomy last year, just to cover all bases across the board. We didn't announce this to the family, but it also wasn't a secret. We have had a few people ask if we're having another one, and that's usually when it comes up. Now, I am one of 6 siblings, and our mother was one of 8 kids. Most of our siblings had at least 3 children, if not a lot more. And the only other person in my family that has one and done is my brother. Our mother struggles to accept this and has said several times that we will change our minds. Even knowing that my wife and I physically cannot have more children, she will always bring up adoption or say that my procedure could be reversed and all this other stuff. But my brother and I always shut it down and have told her, amongst other things, that we are not changing our minds. Recently, she was babysitting my son while my wife and I went out. We picked him up afterwards, and on the car ride home, out of nowhere, my son started crying and asking if we were having another baby, and we just said to him no. He then said that his grandmother kept asking him if he wanted a baby sister and saying that we should have another baby and that he could be a big helper. Well, we got home rather quickly and we consoled him and promised him that we were not having another baby and that his grandmother never should have told him this. I then called my mom and got on her about all of this, telling her that she stooped low by getting our son involved. She said that we're overreacting and him crying over potentially getting another sibling is ridiculous and that we are raising a spoiled child. But I argued no. He is a sensitive kid who doesn't do great with change, and she scared him with the things she said. So I told her that until I can trust that she won't say these things to him, her babysitting privileges have been revoked, and she will only be around him if my wife and I are there. Now, my brother backs me up on this because apparently our mother tried the same thing with his son, and it led to a similar argument on their end. But our sisters think that we're overreacting, and that this is a natural question, and my mom is right that it should not have upset my child so much. So am I the jerk for flipping out on my mom in the way that I did? Because right now I am still incredibly angry. Okay, wow, this is crazy talk. She cannot do that to somebody else's kid. She literally went to this kid and was like, oh, are you ready for a baby sister? You get to be an older brother. Are you ready for that? Like, she did not pose some kind of like hypothetical scenario where this kid's gonna be an older brother one day. She straight up said, oh, you're gonna be a big brother, and seriously put the idea in this 6-year-old's head that yeah, you're about to have another kid in the family. And that is so wrong. That is so messed up. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, and your sisters and anybody else who's justifying this, in my opinion, are completely out of their minds. My entitled sister-in-law thinks that just because she has kids, she is somehow entitled to have the family cabin all winter long. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandparents own a cabin that's near a ski resort about an hour and a half from where we live. It was used a lot when I was a kid by most of my family, but there was a couple-year gap when all of my generation moved away for school that it sat empty. In the last few years, more of us have moved back and started using the cabin, and it was easy to share as only 5 of us use it, and we are all considerate that it is a family-owned place, so we message each other about availability and what essentials like cleaning supplies need to be replaced. Well, this all changed with my brother, his wife, and 3 kids. My sister-in-law has always claimed to hate the place because it's not for entertainment, it's mostly a place for a few people to crash on a ski trip. So last year, she put her kids on the ski team and went around the rest of the cousins to my grandparents directly, saying that she wants to use it more often. My grandparents were okay with this, telling them that as long as it's not reserved by others, they can use it. She then proceeded to reserve every weekend that winter, and she didn't even use half of them. When I asked about getting a weekend, she was really weird about it over the phone. So I visited her to find a free weekend, and when I asked her about every weekend being booked, she said to me, "We don't want it every weekend. We just want the ability to go every week, and we don't want to decide until that Friday." And she said that with a straight face, expecting it to be normal. Well, I reached out to the other cousins that use it, and I found out that everyone had gotten a similar response from her, and most had just moved back to town and assumed that was normal because she's the only one with kids. We then went to my grandparents as a group and explained the situation, and as a result, they changed the policy. Now each of us gets an even amount of weekends that we can swap with each other if we wanted. Well, when this happened, that really pissed off my sister-in-law, and she has now been frantically calling all of us trying to get our weekends, saying stuff like, oh, she already invited friends for specific weekends, or that her kids need to be there on certain dates. When that failed, she started texting all of us, demanding that we not go on our weekends. Well, we all got the text together and went over to our grandparents. Now, our sister-in-law can only use the place if she gets confirmation that none of us will be there, which, by the way, basically means she's never going to be there. Now, she is still freaking out, but it has gotten my cousins and I closer, as we have all agreed to be adults about it and just talk to each other when a conflict arises. Now, for a bit of context, this is not an Airbnb or anything like that. I check every year, and there is a nearby cabin that is on Airbnb that we ourselves have used if a large group wants to go up, meaning that she could be doing this under the table with friends, but I really think it's more about clout. Also, my brother doesn't get involved. He sees himself as above these petty squabbles, but my sister-in-law is definitely parroting his opinions. I mean, I don't think she would do this without his agreement. My grandparents are also incredible. These aren't big blowouts with them, and they are 2 to 3 minute parts of longer visits. We are mostly adults, and we can discuss this stuff quickly and calmly with them. So honestly, I'm so sick of my sister-in-law, and hopefully this all gets better sooner than later. Yeah, your sister-in-law sounds super entitled. Who in their right mind would be like, oh, we don't know when we want to go, so we're just gonna book every weekend just to be safe. It's like, what are you doing? You can't do that. That literally cuts everybody out of the family of going to this cabin that, by the way, is not even yours. Like, this is the very definition of taking advantage of someone else's property. So truly, I think your sister-in-law really needs to get a grip because her behavior is completely unacceptable. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.